Hello and welcome, I'm Thomas Porteous and you're watching Gulf Today on NewsX World. Let's take a look at some of the top headlines of the hour. Israeli forces carry out a targeted strike in central Gaza, killing one Palestinian and injuring 4 others. The military says the strikes targeted an Islamic Jihad member, allegedly planning an attack as both sides continue to trade accusations of violating the US-backed ceasefire. US Secretary of State Marco Rubio says he does not envision a permanent division of Gaza, even as Israeli troops hold territory under a US-brokered ceasefire. He says an international stabilization force backed by a possible UN resolution would gradually extend security across the Strip, ensuring Gaza is fully demilitarized and free from Hamas control. Lebanon's health ministry says 2 people were killed and another wounded in Israeli strikes on the country's south. The IDF confirms a drone strike near Harouf that killed a Hezbollah Radwan force commander, while a second strike on a motorcycle in Qlaileh left 1 person dead. Thousands of Israelis take to the streets demanding the return of the remains of captives still held in Gaza. The protests come as Egyptian heavy machinery enters the Strip to support efforts to recover the bodies. Israel's far-right National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir says Israel is not a protectorate, pushing back against reports of US pressure on Prime Minister Netanyahu to uphold the ceasefire. He says he appreciates President Trump but insists Israel must be the masters of our own house. The leaders of Thailand and Cambodia have signed an enhanced ceasefire deal in Kuala Lumpur in the presence of US President Donald Trump, formally ending their deadly border conflict. The agreement builds on a July truce brokered after Trump urged both sides to halt fighting or risk losing trade talks with Washington. The second day of trade talks in Kuala Lumpur is paving the way for a productive meeting between Presidents Donald Trump and Xi Jinping, says Washington's top trade envoy. US and Chinese officials hold their 5th round of negotiations since May as both sides work to ease trade tensions. US President Trump says he will increase tariffs on Canada by an additional 10%. Announcing the move on Truth Social after blasting an Ontario ad aired during the World Series. He ends trade talks with Ottawa as the ad quotes Ronald Reagan, warning that tariffs trigger trade wars and economic damage. Now we start in the Gaza Strip, where aid trucks bound for the enclave were seen queued up at the Rafah crossing on Egypt's side as the crossing remains closed for the 5th consecutive day. The Rafah border, a key gateway for humanitarian aid, has been shut since May of 2024 after Israel took control. The World Health Organization has reiterated its call for the crossing to be reopened, stating that the current aid shipments to Gaza are only a fraction of what's needed to address the region's dire humanitarian crisis. Meanwhile, Israeli protesters have gathered in Tel Aviv demanding the Israeli government to ensure the return of the remaining deceased hostages in Gaza. We're now joined by Dr. Wael Awad. He is a Middle East affairs expert and he joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much, Dr. Awad, for joining us here on the programme. Now, Dr. Awad, it's been around 12 days since that ceasefire came into effect. Over 90 people have been killed since it was signed on October the 11th, and a reported 980 trucks have entered the Gaza Strip, far short of the 6,600 which were expected. Rafah has now been closed for 5 consecutive days. What does that say about the fragile nature of this ceasefire?
Thank you, Thomas. I think what is happening exactly is the situation that Israel wanted to extract the maximum leverage and concession from the Palestinian side without giving anything in return. Having said that, I would say that when you are demanding that you wanted the remaining part or the rest of the dead bodies of the Israelis held hostages with the Hamas, you need to give them the infrastructure equipment that they are able to dig and take these dead bodies out of it. So therefore, we see that now there is a special team has come from Egypt to start the digging in certain area where they can take out the bodies and finish this headache. Israel have been violating from day one this ceasefire, and because of lots of pressure also on Prime Minister Netanyahu from his right-wing partners, especially Smotrich and Ben Gvir, as you were saying, because they think that the American imposed this truce between Hamas and Israel because of two reasons. A, that President Trump wanted to make sure that he is having the upper hand in the current situation on the ground. And also he wanted to give the upper hand of the Israelis, that they are able to create havoc in the West Bank. If you see what's happening in West Bank, you will be surprised that most of the Israeli settlers attacking Palestinians, where they're harvesting their olives, and then also they're confiscating their lands, they're threatening them, and many of them have been killed and injured on the eyes and under the protection of the Israeli army. So what does it give you an indication? That there will be another front open while the Gaza people continue to suffer. You need to at least 1,000 of trucks every day to meet the demands of 2.3 million people living in the open without any food, water, or name it, nothing there to survive. So how do you can cut because you want to put pressure on Hamas to release the dead bodies? So I think that is where we need to continue the international pressure on Israel to make sure that this have to be implemented in the true spirit.
Dr. Awad, there was plenty of international praise when this ceasefire first went into effect. And of course, when everyone was seeing those images of the people of Gaza suffering, there was plenty of international condemnation towards Israel. But since those strikes have stopped, the starvation continues. And as these trucks do trickle in, but very, very slowly, the international condemnation seems to have stopped. Do you think there should be more international pressure from the Muslim world, from Western governments, in order for this ceasefire to be adhered by properly?
Well, I think, Thomas, it's not that the West have stopped the condemnation. Look at the street in the capitals in the Western world. They are still demanding an end of these atrocities against the Palestinians, because what we are witnessing currently is that those who survived the onslaught for the last 2 years and 30 days is understanding very well that they may die because of starvation, famine, or they can die because of the, they have nothing to survive. And many of the people there are actually needing immediate help, especially people who have been legs, amputated hand, at the verge of their chronic diseases, are unable to meet. There is no hospital, there is nothing you can survive. So this is one part of the story of Israel-Palestinian crisis, is the humanitarian issue. You created the crisis where it be turning Gaza into unlivable. So it's very difficult for the people to survive. I think the pressure is to continue. Even Netanyahu, as we speaking, the demonstration in Israel against Netanyahu government is exceeding the limits. And I'm sure if there will be an early election that Netanyahu will not survive, as the Israelis media is giving the indication. So I think the pressure is from within Israel. It should be mounted more on the current government, who is not even interested in seeing a two-state solution. When you wanted to annex the whole of West Bank, then you are saying there is no question of a viable Palestinian state. And also in Gaza, you continue to deny the Palestinians their survival tools. So how you wanted only the pressure should be limited to one certain country. I think even the United States, President Trump, while he was traveling to Qatar, he made a stoppage because he wanted to make sure that this ceasefire will continue. And at the same time, he wanted also to make sure that Kushner and his Rubio are also following the development inside Gaza. And America cannot be, isolated, or cannot be more isolated like Israel, because both of them, both U.S. and Israel, have been totally internationally isolated because of the ongoing onslaught on Gaza.
Okay, Dr. Awad, do stay with us. We have more coming out of Tel Aviv. where thousands of Israelis have taken to the streets in a powerful protest, demanding the return of the 13 Israeli hostages' bodies still being held by Hamas in Gaza. Protesters expressed the anguish of families waiting for their loved ones to come home. Let's listen in.
Yeah, so my family met Secretary Rubio today. It was important for us to meet him, look him in the eye, making sure that they are focused and eye on the ball, which is the remaining 13 hostages. He reassured us that there's nothing more important for his administration than to get the remaining hostages out, including 2 U.S. citizens. One of them is my son.
עיניו של מתן נשטפות דמעות שהוא נזכר שאיתי עדיין שם. בכל הזדמנות הוא אומר שהוא רוצה לעלות על מדים ולהחזיר אותו כי זה צורך קיומי עבורו. והצורך הקיומי של מתן הוא הצורך הקיומי של 13 משפחות שעדיין מחכות ליקיריהן שיחזרו. אז אנחנו לא עוצרים, אנחנו ממשיכים עד שכולם חוזרים.
This comes as a senior Hamas figure stated that the group had no interest in retaining the bodies of deceased hostages, but was facing challenges in recovering them. Meanwhile, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio reassured the grieving families that the U.S. is pressuring Hamas to recognize that the hostages are a liability and not an asset. Dr. Awad, of course, Hamas have now released all the living hostages. Some would say that is all their bargaining chips gone. However, some Israelis still believe that Hamas is holding those of the deceased as a psychological tool. What are these people protesting trying to achieve here?
Well, I think because of Netanyahu's government, everybody, even the opposition party in Israel, are also saying it openly now. Bennett have been saying that Israel has been totally isolated internationally because of Netanyahu's war on Gaza, because everybody says it, even the Israeli media, that Netanyahu went into this war for his own political survival, because there are lots of cases against him inside Israel. However, the topic of Hamas keeping the dead bodies and releasing the alive one, it shows also sort of an intention that Hamas is not interested in keeping anymore. They have already agreed in spirit and in terms of whatever terms and conditions that President Trump has put. So then they need to put an end to the suffering of the Palestinians. And that's what we are noticing. Look at the irony of the matter here. You're having 20 people. I'm sure everybody loved one wanted to have his, and we don't wish anybody bad things. But what I'm trying to explain here, you have 10,000 missing Palestinians underground who is unable, their parent doesn't know anything. Israel does not allow the media to go and see the atrocities committed against the Palestinians. We only talk of the narrative of the Western world that we are talking of the remaining bodies of the Israelis with Hamas. Why nobody talk about the Palestinians? Why nobody talk about the 67,850 Palestinians have been killed? Why nobody talk about the 200,000 people already injured, more than 50% of them needing immediate medical. All these issues has to be addressed if seriously we wanted to address this problem of what's going on in West Asia. Look at the trends now. It is West Bank. Next is going to be Lebanon, because for the Israelis to take any bargaining chip from the United States, they will tell them, okay, you said Hamas ceasefire is done, but we are going toward Lebanon. And that is where you will see, and tomorrow you will come up with the next story of what's going in the front of Lebanon by Israel.
Dr. Awad, just very briefly, because we're running out of time, Marco Rubio was in Israel just yesterday, and he said that the U.S. is pressing to Hamas to recognize that hostages are a liability and not an asset. Where does that say that the U.S. stands in this?
Well, look, the United States is fully involved in the war on Gaza. Everybody knows that nothing can be done by the Israelis without the approval and by the Americans. Look at President Trump. You remember when he was delivering his speech in the Knesset, what he was saying, that Netanyahu was so clever that he asking for so much sophisticated weapon, and he used it very well. Is that the word of a president? And what do you expect from Rubio? He's nothing but he's the stooge of his own president. He's just echoing what he wants. So he's exactly doing what the Israeli wanted the American to do. And even Smotrich, he was saying that America is against his declaring that he wanted to annex the West Bank. And President Trump, he said the American will come on terms and understand how it is important for Israel to annex the West Bank.
Yes, Dr. Qlaileh, do stay with us. We have further news updates. Where President Donald Trump met with the Emir of Qatar, Emir Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani, and Foreign Minister Sheikh Mohammed bin Abdul Rahman bin Jassim Al Thani on board Air Force One during a refueling stop at Al Udeid Air Base near Doha, Qatar. Sitting between the two Qatari leaders, Trump praised Qatar as a great ally to the United States and said that the Middle East under Qatar's watch will remain safe for a long time. Let's take a listen.
Well, the Emir is one of the great rulers of the world, not just the Middle East. He's beloved and respected by his country. I don't know what's more important, being beloved or respected. Both. You have a preference? Because you love both. You're one of the few. And the Prime Minister has been my friend and a friend to the world. And we've done a lot together in the last, especially in the last year. What we've done is incredible. Peace to the Middle East. And they were a very big factor in it. So I just want to thank you. I was thinking, we're landing here, we're going to fuel up, and it's such an honor to have you on the plane. Oh, you don't do this often. Never first time. I don't think he's ever done this, actually. But it's an honor. We have a great, he's a great ally, they are a great ally, and these are two great men. And as long as we're together and you have those cameras rolling, I want to just say we express our thanks. And you have a safe Middle East right there. We're going to keep it that way for a long time.
We're once again joined by Dr. Awad. The United States and the Qataris have started seemingly a new, very special relationship under President Trump. Of course, the Gulf was Donald Trump's first foreign visit, where he made a very, very special trip to Qatar. It's obviously been a quintessential place in negotiations during these ceasefire negotiations in this war. It seemingly was very embarrassing for Donald Trump when Netanyahu and Israel bombed Qatar just months ago. What can you say about that relationship, the closeness of those leaders there?
Well, I think, as we know, all President Trump, he said he is the deal breaker, and he is the deal breaker in the sense he collected $1.5 trillion from Qatar when he visited them first time. And then even after that, Netanyahu attacked Qatar and have raised the anger in the Americans. They were surprised by his attack. So then they reached a sort of another agreement with Qatar that to protect the Qatari, the American. So I think he has been flooded with enough money that the President Trump, as we say in India, makkandaldo, you put little bit butter on the things that is softened. So President Trump, he is the person who can be soften his position, and his eyes will be closed if you give him a good deal of money and he think he's saving the United States. So I think he have a relation, no doubt about it, with him and Qatar, because Qatar is also the peace broker. Qatar has accepted Hamas presence in Doha because of the American willingness, and also the Afghanistan leader Taliban have been there with the Americans. So they have been a close ally with the United States. They have been also monitoring the development in the Middle East, where the Qatari money has been used to implement the American objectives.
Yes, Dr. Awad, do once again stay with us. We have some breaking news coming in. The Kurdistan Workers' Party, also called the PKK, are pulling their forces back from Turkey to North Iraq in a move announced by the militant group's leadership. The PKK has been entrenched in a fight for autonomous governments against Turkey as they look to establish governance over the widespread Kurdish community in the Middle East. What more can you tell us about the PKK, Dr. Awad, and the possible reasons for the movements here?
As you know, the PKK have been fighting for long years against the Turkish government, and they have taken shelter in the northern part of Syria, northeastern part of Syria, where they have established some kind of a Kurdish democratic forces with the support of the United States during the 2011 Arab Spring, and where Syria was inflicted by all these jihadist groups. So they have been protected by the United States. They have taken shelter, and they have been turning into a force because the United States wanted to use them as a blackmail chips against Turkey in the future, because of that is what carries the ambition of all the Kurdish people in Iran, in Turkey, in Iraq, in Syria, to have an independent Kurdistan. So therefore, now with the Turkey falling on line with the Israelis and the American objective in the region, I think they wanted to ease the pressure along on these lines and not to use it at the moment. However, having said that, I will say that there is also a new development inside Iraq where the American and the Israelis are going to, after the Popular Front, which is considered to be a strong forces, and they wanted to dismantle these forces. Now, by they creating another face of the Kurdish forces in the northern part of Iraq, especially in the Kurdistan province of Iraq, that also gives you an indication there are more than the declaration to meet the eyes. What could be the objective of more chaotic situation in the region rather than having a sort of a solution? Because you do not make peace by force, or you're only creating a piecemeal in the whole region.
Dr. Qlaileh Awad, thank you very much. Absolute pleasure to have you on the program. We now move on over to Southeast Asia, where protesters have held up an anti-Trump rally in downtown Kuala Lumpur as the US president attends the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or the ASEAN summit. The rally, led by Parti Islam Si Malaysia, otherwise known as PAS, has featured chants and placards denouncing Trump's stance on Gaza. PAS leaders attempted to deliver a memorandum to the embassy, but said that no officials came forward to receive it. The protests come amid regional discussions on the recent Israel-Hamas peace deal, part of Trump's 20-point Middle East plan. Now, to discuss this is Dr. Satoru Nagao. He's a fellow at the Hudson Institute, and he joins us live from Tokyo. Thank you very much, Dr. Nagao, for joining us here on the program. What does this say about Malaysia's stance on Donald Trump? Of course, the Malaysian Prime Minister, President Ibrahim, was very close to Donald Trump in negotiating the Thai Cambodia ceasefire deal. However, the public and these protesters in particular don't like the way he seems to have handled that deal in the Middle East. What are your thoughts, Dr. Nagao?
In this case, we are living the one kind of the global age. So that's why the international conference has happened. Of course, the demonstrator also try to join the demonstration. So that's why if the demonstration has happened in the venue of the international conference, we do not need to think that they are locals. So that's why, of course, there are plenty of reasons demonstration against Trump could happen. One is, of course, trade negotiation. Another one is a Middle East policy, or because Malaysia is a Muslim country. That is true, but at the same time, we should not think that they are majority of the Malaysia's opinion, or they are the part of the government policy towards Trump, President Trump, or this is Malaysia's public opinion. We do not need to think so. So this is one kind of common. This time the ASEAN meeting has happened. Next time there may be EU conference or United Nations conference. Every time we can find such kind of demonstration. But at the same time, we should not forget it. The Malaysian government is nearly signing the trade deal with President Trump soon. And the Malaysian government is very close to the ceasefire negotiation between Thailand and Cambodia. And in this case, Malaysia gets a diplomatic diplomatic achievement because of they cooperate with the President Trump. So as the chairman of the host country of the ASEAN meeting, they can show their presence. So this means that view from the Malaysian government, this meeting is very beneficial diplomatically. So that's why they do not need to show the strong stance against Trump's policy. So this is not the timing the Malaysian government want to show. So view from this situation, this demonstration is not representative of the Malaysian government and the Malaysian policy, I think, because this achievement is Malaysia nearly get. That is the timing. So demonstration is not related to Malaysia, which is thing, I think.
Yes, Dr. Nagao, thank you very much for joining us here on NewsX World. It's always a pleasure to have you. Well, that is all that we have time for now. Apologies, we have one more story. Venezuela is conducting military exercises aimed at protecting its coasts against potential covert operations approved by the administration of US President Donald Trump, says the Defense Minister Vladimir Padrino. Trump authorized CIA operations in Venezuela and considering conducting ground attacks against alleged drug cartels in the South American country. Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro has denounced American aggression in the Caribbean, saying that the USA is fabricating a war against Venezuela. Let's listen in to what the Defense Minister Vladimir Padrino had to say.
Colombia debe saber que cuenta con la Fuerza Armada Nacional Bolivariana. El pueblo de Colombia debe saber que cuenta de este lado con el apoyo moral, físico y el despliegue en nuestro territorio para enfrentar todas las amenazas que se ciernen sobre la frontera. El que no diga sí, se arrodille y diga sí, baje la cabeza ante el imperialismo norteamericano, ya corre el riesgo de ser señalado como narcotraficante. Esa es la estrategia, pues burda, una estrategia de verdad estrafalaria, una estrategia sin sentido, una estrategia vulgar que ofende la inteligencia de los pueblos de América Latina y del Caribe.
And that is a wrap on Gulf Today. Keep watching NewsX World.